was camping with his dad. He says he saw red eyes watching them from the woods.
23,000 sightings reported since the 1950s.
Reports of ghost sightings and paranormal activity are on the rise this year.
It's clear, but that amateur treasure hunter you're about to meet recorded and photographed his finds.
Security cameras captured what appears to be a wolf man walking around the property. City officials say this image is real.
Growing up, I spent a lot of my time in the woods and forests of upstate New York. Hiking around, no destination in mind, building forts, climbing trees, enjoying nature, and getting dirty. I had a great imagination, and sometimes, on my way home in the evening, I'd just look into the woods and my imagination would run wild about what kind of creatures could be lurking there in the shadows. At night, the woods seemed like a totally different world than it was during the day. Like an unexplored realm of mystery and the unknown. As I got older, I spent even more time in the woods, as night as well. Heck, I used to swear a Sasquatch was in the woods close to where I lived, although I never found any evidence to support it. Case in point, my woods weren't what most would call haunted. But that's not always the case here stateside or around the world. Many forests and woods have come to be hotspots of unexplained phenomenon and high strangeness in one way or another. But one small remote wood in the state of Virginia is so embedded into the world of the unknown, it's certainly somewhere right at the top of the list. Its name? Old House Woods. Located along the Chesapeake Bay in the area of Mathews County, Virginia, lies the small, quaint little town of Diggs. If you traveled there to look around, seeing the lovely coastal scenery, this sleepy, quiet town would seem quite normal. Certainly nothing that screams eerie or paranormal, but branching off from the town is a road called Haven Beach Road. Taking it leads you to a 50-area patch of very dense pine woods and soggy marshes situated in the wilderness area of White's Creek. With its trees so thickly packed that they block out the sun to the wet marshes, it alone would make it fairly creepy. The woods would be scarcely dissimilar to all the other scenery of the region if it weren't for its history and such high amounts of the bizarre and otherworldly phenomena that takes place there. It's considered to be one of the most haunted and cursed woods in all of Virginia, and maybe even of the whole United States. The area of Old House Woods was once upon a time a popular port before and during the Revolutionary War for soldiers and pirates alike, who would use the dense forests as a place to lay low and hide out. Enough pirates were said to be camped out in the woods here that people intending to travel through had to be warned of the dangers. The port also saw its popularity rise again during the Civil War, where it was once again a place of danger. Because the area had seen all manner of war, murder, and thievery, maybe the history alone had earned it its sinister reputation for all sorts of legends and unknown phenomena that spans over 200 years. Over time, the surrounding area earned several nicknames such as Haunted Woods and Black Forest. Even the name of the forest as Old House Woods has its roots in the paranormal. The name Old House Woods supposedly comes from the late 1700s. There used to be a house that stood smack dab in the middle of the forest, a colonial wood-framed home known as the Franny Night House. According to its lore, it had been long abandoned and sat in a state of horrible disrepair and decay, and it was also haunted by spirits. As the story goes, the home set itself on fire, only to put itself out again on its own. It inexplicably caught on fire again years later without any known cause, and this time burned all the way down to the foundations, which are now slowly being claimed with the roots and vines and vegetation of the forest. Today, that's all that's left of the Franny Night House. Being very active during two wars and in between the British soldiers and pirates, there are also legends of buried treasure and other valuables. Down somewhere on the shores of White's Creek is said to be one of the many treasures buried by pirates that frequented the area. It's said that the pirates buried quite the tidy sum in gold coins there before heading back out to sea in search of even more. Legend says that they never made it back, as the ship and its whole crew were lost at sea during a terrible storm, and the treasure remains unfound, but guarded by their spirits even in death. To this day, people report seeing ghostly apparitions of pirates digging along the creek, trying to regain their long-lost treasure. Another lost treasure legend in the area takes place in 1781, during the Revolutionary War. Men under the command of the great British military leader, General Charles Cornwallis, are said to have retreated into the woods from advancing patriots.
Before this war's over, I'm going to kill you.
While hauling a large hoard of stolen loot to bring back to their commander. Realizing that they couldn't both haul the treasure and fight at the same time, they allegedly hid it in Old House Woods near White's Creek, with full intent on retrieving it later. But they were later arrested at the end of the war, and the treasure remains unclaimed since. Cornwallis's lost treasure is said to still be hidden out in the woods, hidden among the forgotten, scattered dead. Yet another legend of buried booty in the area is said to be a ship full of treasure sent to America in 1651 by King Charles II of England, after the Battle of Worcester, as a precaution in case he was forced to flee England and take refuge in the colonies. The ship was bound for Jamestown, but got waylaid by a storm to find itself completely lost, slowly sailing its way down White's Creek. Supposedly, it's here during their journey that the ship was ambushed by bandits who killed the crew, stole the treasure, and buried it somewhere in Old House Woods for safekeeping, planning on retrieving it later. Depending on which version of the story is told, the bandits either died at sea or were captured and put to death, with the treasure remaining where it was buried, guarded by the spirits not of the bandits, but of King Charles's crew, keeping it safe for eternity. Some versions of the tale claim the long-dead bandits also returned to dig for the treasure in the dead of night, carrying ghostly lanterns, which some see as glimmering lights deep in the forest. If at any point so far in the story you thought to yourself, man, I should get down there and hunt for some treasure myself, you wouldn't be alone. Over the years, many have gone in search of the various treasures only to come up empty-handed, but consider them to be the lucky ones, as according to rumor, these treasures have a habit of making people looking for them disappear. Stories are common of treasure hunters entering the woods and never coming back out, simply vanishing into the unknown. One such strange tale involves a treasure hunter who actually found the location of one of the treasures, only for his boat to be found adrift in the bay carrying very old coins, but no sign of the man himself. Apparently, he was never seen again. It's unknown whether the strange disappearances and the treasure-hoarding specters are connected to each other, or if they even happen at all. In truth, the very real problem for would-be treasure seekers is that most of the land of Old House Woods is now private property. So for anybody planning a treasure hunt, you should watch out not only for spirits, but for posted signs, or you too could face not just the wrath of ghostly pirates, but angry landowners. This area as a whole comes packed to the gills with all sorts of entities, apparitions, unexplained and bizarre phenomena, and if you have protective ghostly pirates in the mix, they also come with entire ships. The most well-known account of a ghostly galleon was made during the 19th century by a fisherman named Ben Farabee, who was on his boat fishing on White's Creek near the bay, when he allegedly spotted something incredible. According to the report, a large full-masted wooden galleon suddenly appeared with lights at every mast and spar, and ghostly crew members seen clearly on board looking off into the distance. The ship was heading directly towards Farabee, and his yells went unheeded by the crew. He managed to quickly maneuver his small ship in a panic once he concluded a collision was imminent. However, as the giant ship loomed over him and disaster seemed certain, There was no collision, no sudden explosion of shattered wood and water. The ship just passed him by, leaving swirling waves and the sound of eerie harps playing in its wake. Farabee was stunned. He watched on as the ship continued its course, hovered up over the beach, and then over the trees, as if it were still floating on water, not air. Reportedly, it was then that Farabee saw rope ladders descend from its sides, with crewmates carrying tools and other contraptions, climbing down and into the wilderness. Nothing is known of what happened next. Did the ship go back to sea? Did it disappear in midair? Answers to those questions are as elusive as the pirate treasure is itself. Other ghost ship reports are mostly similar. A large wooden ship of some sort, often described as a Spanish galleon, which would appear out of nowhere either in the Chesapeake Bay or on White's Creek, floating above the water as well as land and trees before vanishing into the ether, sometimes right before startled witnesses' eyes. In most reports, the ship is completely quiet, with a strange fog that accompanies it. Sometimes the shadowy crew can be seen on the decks. They seem to be completely oblivious to any attempts to get a hold of them or signal them. Some reports say that the ships stop in midair directly over the old house woods, where they then proceed to see ghostly crew come down on ladders to either search the area or simply vanish. We're not done yet, as this area has even more to offer in the way of the weird than pirate specters, treasures, and ghostly ships. Many other apparitions are seen as well roaming the woods. The most famous is said to be a woman in a white flowing gown, described as glowing with an eerie blue or green light. It's said that her hair appears to be tossed around in the wind even on nights when the air is completely still. Even scarier is that she also floats in midair, letting out a deafening, terrifying scream. Her presence is seen as an omen of imminent stormy weather, which earned her the nickname of the Storm Woman. Those that have seen her have said it's best to leave the area, as what follows her sighting is almost certainly a horrific storm which would torment the area. The spirits of British redcoats are also commonly reported among the trees in the woods. A local resident named Henry Forrest was one of them. Forrest claimed that one night he was out hunting ducks. He came to a small inlet and observed what he thought were a group of black ducks floating on the water and steadied his gun to fire. Suddenly, the floating black shapes began to morph and shift to become the terrifying specters of redcoat soldiers, who then marched towards the stunned hunter. He ran as fast as his legs could take him back to his boat, but was shocked to find one of the spirits casually sitting in it. Forrest claimed he then threatened to shoot the soldier if he didn't remove himself from the boat, to which the phantom replied, "You shoot and the devil's curse to you and your traitorous breed." This did not scare the hunter, who then pulled the trigger, the gun giving only a click. He fired again and again, unable to get his rifle to fire properly. It was then that the spirit of the redcoat rose to his feet. Forrest threw his rifle directly at the soldier and fled in terror. Other reports are similar, where ghostly redcoats approach witnesses or even fire at them without doing any damage. Others report the spirits as searching for something, possibly Cornwallis's treasure. And believe it or not, there have been even more bizarre sightings than the ones we've discussed so far. What could possibly be stranger and more bizarre than ghostly redcoats, spectral pirates, and floating ships, you might ask? Well, here's one for you. How about fully armored skeletons roaming the woods as well? Bet you didn't see that one coming. In 1926, a witness named Jesse Hudgens reported that he had been approached by a group of mysterious strangers, carrying lanterns that, according to him, exuded an unearthly glow. As the strangers came closer, he noticed that they were skeletons wearing some kind of old-fashioned armor, one of which waved a rusty, ancient-looking sword at him. In another account, a man was driving down a road that cut through Old House Woods when his car broke down. While wondering what he was going to do about his situation, he reported being approached by what he described as a skeleton in full armor. The skeleton slowly approached him and supposedly said, "Is this the King's Highway? I've lost my ship," which sent the terrified man running for his life down the road, leaving his car behind. Ghostly forms of humankind are not the only thing that haunts these woods, but spectral animals as well. Famously, ghostly black dogs are said to terrorize by pouncing from the underbrush at unsuspecting people. They've also been known to attack vehicles, chase people, and even destroy the bed of trucks, then vanishing into nothingness. Their barks are often heard echoing throughout the woods. Besides dogs, people have also reported ghostly crows, horses, and even headless cows deep in the forest. The whole area of Old House Woods has long been inundated by a variety of many other miscellaneous strange occurrences. Travelers at one point refused to go through the area entirely, not just because of the pirates and bandits they thought were lurking within, but their horses would fly into a panic and refuse to go any further. That pervasive feeling of dread also extends to people, with some of the visitors being overwhelmed by a feeling of imminent doom or panic, with some just refusing to continue past certain points. Other physical feelings reported were people feeling like their breath had been taken from their body, leaving them either choking or unable to breathe. Since the area was settled right up until modern times, even orbs of light had been seen dancing through the trees, as well as a bizarre greenish haze that would descend upon the area. Others would report strange sulfur-like smells that would descend upon specific areas, and it would grow to get worse and worse and worse until almost unbearable, and then it would disappear as quickly as it arrived. Paranormal investigators to the area report all of their equipment malfunctioning, from cameras to other electrical equipment. Batteries would be dead even though they were fully recharged, and flashlights would turn off at a moment's notice. Many investigators claim to have collected photos and videos of strange lights or figures and EVP recordings, from voices to footsteps, even the sound of cannon fire, all which were inaudible during recording. Whether you're just casually interested in all things paranormal, just interested in the history, or a more serious investigator, Old House Woods seems to have everything. Even though many of the stories here seem more like urban legends and tall tales. But with the dense wilderness, trees packed tightly to literally block out the sky, and the strange quiet, it's prime material for campfire stories and horror stories. But keep in mind, these accounts go back over 200 years, so it makes one wonder if there's not something more to it all. And is that something to these creepy old woods and its surrounding area that's making it one of the most haunted places in America? Or are they just normal woods that conjure up all manner of ghouls and ghosts because of its history and appearance? We might not ever know the answers there, but do me a favor. The next time you're near a forest or woods, or lucky enough to be in them on one of these crisp fall nights, pause for a moment. Look into the darkness and trees and let your imagination run wild.